and they don't ever stop. We are on a crash course and freedom is running on as long as we want.
The License and Registration Show is brought to you by Wheelhouse Storage, luxury garage condos for all of your toys. Visit wheelhousestorage.com for more information. Now on to the show.
Get over there. Sweet. And here we go. Welcome to the License and Registration Show. I am your host, Mike Rioux. Today I have some great Jeep friends in the house from Happy Trails Off-Road. How you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Doing just fine.
I can go ahead and let everybody know who we have.
All right, my name is Molly Austin with Happy Trails 4x4, co-owner.
And Melvin Petiet with Happy Trails 4x4, the other co-owner.
Awesome. It's great to have you guys out. Thanks for taking the time to come out. I know we're not exactly around the corner from you guys, so...
Thanks for inviting us. It was our pleasure to be here.
Cool. You guys been staying pretty busy?
It has, absolutely. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So Happy Trails Off-Road, give me the 3-second elevator pitch.
Okay. It's Happy Trails 4x4, and we're a Jeep specialty shop, and we focus on 1941 to present, focusing mainly on the Jeep line, product Wranglers, and the earlier vintage models. So it's basically Jeep from 1941, back in the history of World War II, when they first came about, all the way to the present. And our focus is keeping them as original as possible. You know, we want to keep Jeep. There's a lot of things out there that modify the original models into something different, but our goal is to keep it Jeep.
Awesome. So you said you guys cover both vintage, classic, all the way up through the present. So I'm assuming that means you do even all the current mods and customizations and all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really, the World War II Jeeps are the ones you don't really tamper with. Some of the M38s and the Korean era stuff too. It's just kind of, some people will, but if I get one in the shop, I won't. I feel like it's a part of history that shouldn't be tampered with. If you want to cut it up, put a big motor in it, get a civilian Jeep. There's plenty of those, you know. And know,
definitely.
But we love the new ones too. So we do a lot of the brand new Wranglers as well, and the new Gladiators out as well. So
okay, so we're all the way into the JLs,
and the JTs, and
we'll have to talk. We'll talk a little bit about those because I'm curious to get your opinion since you guys are actually hands-on, wrenches on with those. That'll be interesting to hear.
It's some of the feedback we get about the shop from some, sales rep and stuff, or sales reps from national accounts, is that they don't really go to many places and see all the models. You'll come into our shop and there will be a World War II Jeep in there that belongs to a customer that we're working on, and there'll be something out of the 60s and something out of the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000.
That's really cool.
There's just very few places that do all of that. There's, of course, plenty of places that work on JKs, just because they're out there, they're ubiquitous.
Yeah,
the Buffalo stuff is
200,000 sold a year. There's a few of them around.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, the last couple of years.
lucky for us because it's kept us going.
Yeah. No, I mean,
we've had a few of them ourselves. So I know you guys have.
But yeah, I guess that about sums up the shop and what you'd see in there on a day to day.
Very cool. So you guys are Jeep specialists.
Correct.
Why Jeep?
That's me.
I'm a gearhead. He's the Jeep freak.
I was a teenager and I bought one.
All right.
And then
first car?
Okay. Yeah. Well, my parents gave me a vehicle.
Well,
they gave me a Plymouth Volare station wagon, which I quickly got rid of and then bought an old CJ.
I may have to Google a picture of one of those and put it up in the video.
God.
I think it shifts on the column.
Yeah, it was column shift. This thing was a symphony in beige, right? I mean, it literally beige vinyl seats, beige. Oh God, it was straight up Earth Tones, baby, out of the 1970s, right?
Nice.
So quickly, that's not a very cool car. So got the CJ, and then realized pretty quickly that with the capability of that kind of four-wheel drive, it requires maintenance that I didn't have the skill set to maintain. So at the time, I had a buddy who was working at a Jeep dealership, and I just made a phone call and got a job at a Jeep dealer. And here we are 30 some odd years later. That was Jasper Jeep. That was where I first started. And at the time, it was one of the largest Jeep dealers in the world.
That's awesome. That's very
still
cool.
Around today.
It's still around today. Yeah.
What do you think contributes to Jeep's longevity?
It's history. I mean, that's really why we're so passionate about keeping Jeep, and that's our mission statement, and moving it into the future and educating people and preserving its history and making sure. I mean, we partner with the Military Museum in Green Cove North. It's the North Florida Military Museum, but it happens to be in Green Cove Springs, and they're keeping history alive with all the Jeeps on display. And I think it's community, it's history, it's all of it.
Mm-hmm. So has that kind of been what's in your blood and driven the passion for the business?
I would call myself an amateur historian, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that Jeep, having been around as long as it has, is that rudder in the water behind you.
Well, there are very few vehicles, let alone manufacturers, but specific vehicles that have that type of lifespan.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I think of Jeep, the VW Beetle.
Right.
Nothing really else has lasted the test of time as far, at least continuously.
Right. Well, and a lot of people don't realize too that Ford is a big part of Jeep.
Yes.
So especially in the 40s during the war, they split the contract. So we personally,
ours was a GPW.
Yeah, it was a 1942 GPW, which had that little beautiful F on all the seals. So it's it's a part of history, and it's a part of American history, and. Yeah,
that's really cool. So do you feel that kind of permeates into the culture at Happy Trails?
I think it absolutely does. Yeah. It and I don't know if that's because I talk about it so much. Or,
I think your passion is contagious, but I think just it's the Jeep in itself is such a community and a culture in its own. Like it's its own culture.
Right.
So
right.
Like Harley Davidson and VW, it kind of comes in with it.
Yeah, there's definitely an element that you really can't put a finger on. It's a little bit of the history and it's a little bit of whatever you would call culture, but there's just something about that boxy shape. You get in one and it puts a smile on your face, and that's it. You're done. That's
right.
Line and sinker, man.
And I will say one of the really cool things that I've seen over my life in the company is when you bring on somebody that wasn't necessarily a Jeep freak in the beginning, just to see it evolve in them, just to learn about it and become passionate about it. The next thing you know, they're trading in their Honda for a Jeep. Sometimes we have the flip, but it's just it's really neat.
It's one of the few cars you buy and it comes with an instant group of friends.
Yeah. It's got its own wave.
Yeah, so we used to own Mini Coopers. Yeah, and that's a very passionate group as well.
A lot of history there.
And they used to like the Mini Wave and everything else. And so naturally when we got into Jeeps, and it almost leveled that up to another degree, because I mean, it's the only time you get upset if someone doesn't wave back.
He was counting who didn't on the way over here. It's so true.
I'm kind of big on correcting that too. I remember a while ago, this is years ago, somebody did something online with the Jeep Wave, and it was this.
Right.
And I immediately found a picture of Churchill with the V for victory. And I was like, this is, and that's.
Hand on top, two fingers up.
But how cool is that, to have a direct connection to what our GIs were doing in the Second World War with the V for victory? I mean, there is no other vehicle that you're going to get that with.
Completely agree. Yeah. So you guys have worked on everything from 41 through a JL and JT.
Absolutely.
And you guys have been in business for how long?
Since 2007.
2007?
It's quite a while.
Over that time period, are there a couple of builds that really stand out to you? Like when you finished with it and you stood back and you're like, damn, that's cool.
I know you've got one, but...
Kurt Rogers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kurt Rogers, a CJ2A that his great-grandfather bought new. And it is now going into its fifth generation. He's passing it down to
single family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the CJ2A, that was the first civilian Jeep?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
This was a 46, right?
46 CJ2A, yeah. So really, it was just the military Jeep with a few less footman loops and, right, I mean, it really, and painted blue, They didn't do much. They moved the fuel filler to the outside of the body.
That was convenient.
Yeah. In the World War II Jeeps, it was under the driver. The actual fuel filler neck is under the driver's seat. You lift up the seat cushion and put the gas in.
Okay.
Safety was not
it's a scout vehicle. It's not a combat vehicle. But yeah, he actually lives down here.
Really?
Yeah, he's
very
in
cool.
Nocatee.
So this was a full restoration,
ground up.
It got brought down from Connecticut,
Maine,
and it was in Maine.
I'm sorry. It was in Connecticut. it had been through a few family members who all had the best of intentions. So, you know, it had a little bit of work done here and a little bit of work done
bit here, a little there.
A few parts walked away there and a few parts walked away here. And so by the time we got it, it was not a running Jeep, but it was still the Jeep. And I just remember, you know, his dad came down and looked at it. And one of the things he said over and over was that it was his, you know, his grandmother ended up getting it. And then it was his grandfather's like incantation to her, like that he kept saying that over and over again. And I mean, this thing just had such a powerful connection to that family that it was just so much fun to be part of. And man, you do a ground up on something like that, and you just don't want to let them leave. You know, it just becomes, you know,
it becomes a part. You put so much into it.
Well, it's there for a year or more, depending on the.
It takes,
so that's a real one that became real personal for us.
Yeah.
You know,
that's really cool.
That one really stands out. And then there's been a lot of cool LS Jeeps with crazy roll cages. Ben Davis stands out, you know, big monster scrambler that I mean, he called me up one day. He'd been a really good customer of ours since way back. I
mean, a lot of our customers, we build more than one. So this was the second one we had built for him.
And he called me up and he's like, we went up to Macon somewhere. He was like, hey, come on, what are you doing this weekend? And I'm like, so I ride up to Macon with him and we buy this. Like the body wasn't even on the chassis. Like we had to go pick it up in another corner of the garage. And then, there's parts over here too.
The other pieces are over here.
Like we assembled it enough to where it could like be put on a trailer. You know, and then it just kept evolving, and he was so much fun to work with because a little bit of a challenge because, you know, we kind of got it together and got it running, and the next thing you know, he pulls up in his truck and there's an LS3 in the back of the truck, and he's like, well, I want you to put that in there. I'm like, all right, we can do that. You know?
We're going to pivot right here.
But we need to talk about, you know, axles and transmissions, and I mean, the thing ended up on, of course, tons and 40s with a Humvee transmission, actually, a 4L85E with that. It's like a 7.5 to 1 first gear. And just a
beautiful
monster.
Yellow. I mean, it was just amazing. And then
200 some odd feet of roll cage in it. And I mean, it was a really cool build, that one.
But you get close to, like we were saying, community too. You just get really close with your customers. And, you know, it evolved. And then his son had his, you know, gave him his first grandson. Yeah. And so to see him in the Jeep and it was going to be the grandsons, they weren't getting, you know, it's really cool. That was a fun one.
You probably find a lot of these types of builds where it's something that you realize it'll be in the family for at least a while.
Yeah, you hit on something. They become an heirloom. And that's another thing. I mean, I guess in the vintage car world, that's not too, you know, crazy or out of the
no, but and like even a little bit before the show, we were talking about kind of where collector cars themselves are kind of at and what that atmosphere is like. And I think there are two very different camps at polar opposite ends of the collector spectrum. You have those who are in it because there's a passion, because you're a car guy or a Jeep guy or something like that. You have the others who are into it and they're stores of investment, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Now, recently, you guys also opened up a second location.
Correct.
We did.
So where's the first?
The first one's in Atlantic Beach.
Okay.
And the second one's in Green Cove Springs.
Awesome. So what prompted the opening of a second location?
I'll let Melvin tell that. We talked about that earlier,
Yeah, I mean...
And I'll chime in too, but I'll let him start.
Really, we had talked about retention, employee retention, and our eventual goal is to make it an ESOP or some variation thereof, kind of like Jasper Engines is. You know, obviously on a much smaller scale than Jasper Engines, but you got to make room at the top.
And for those that don't know what an ESOP is,
it's 100% associate-owned company.
Right. So a company owned by the employees.
Exactly. It's an associate-owned company.
So you don't want your guys to feel like it's a dead-end job. And the only way to make room for them is to get out of the way and open up another one. And it just seemed to make sense at the time. Jacksonville is such a growing area. It's such a huge city. You can't cover it, you know. I mean, we used to hear all the time, if you were over here, we'd come over there. And I'm like, you don't have to make excuses, man. If I lived in Orange Park, I wouldn't drive to Atlantic Beach either. Believe me, I'm not judging you. You know,
it was a challenge trying to pinpoint the location because Jacksonville is growing on such a large level that, I mean, Who's to say there won't be a third? But it's really our end game is to be associate owned. So I come from corporate America. I've been with ESOP companies, Jasper Engines. I've just kind of really gotten to know that company and its corporate structure. And it's not an ESOP, but it's associate owned, and we really want to achieve that. And it's going to take growth because
definitely.
Right now we have 11 employees, and to do something like that, you really need to have almost double.
Nice. So is it the same service set at both locations?
It
okay.
is.
So
it is. Yeah.
A little more vintage in Green Cove, but right now in Atlantic Beach we have 3 CJs in there.
Yeah.
And we just did a carburetor on a 76 CJ2A that just came shipped in from Colorado for one of our new customers.
Now you guys also do like regular service as well. So like if you have a newer Jeep and fluids, regular changes, all that.
So that's what
stuff.
sets us aside too. We're mechanics. I mean, our guys are mechanics, not just bolt on.
Yeah, check engine light pops on.
Full diagnostic.
Regular. Yeah, it's not just restorations. It's full service and repair. Transmissions overhauled, in-house, differentials overhauled, and that's part of the thing too. Is these skill sets you got to keep them in-house. That's the only way you keep the QC.
Right. Oh yeah. Definitely.
That's it's always the subs that where the problems exist.
Now, one thing I have admired about Happy Trails for a long time is it always seems your connection to your customer base, but customer service as a whole. What do you guys where's your basis and how you treat customer service?
Customer retention is huge. So it's about treating them as a person, and that's one part of our mission too, and part of our corporate culture and structure is we don't pay our guys on commission. Our guys don't get paid on flat rate. So you actually you don't have to hit a number or make a sale. You're there to just actually do your job and work with the customer and get a feel for what they really want and not what you are supposed to be pushing on them that day. So it's you really care, and you get to know the customer, and it's individual. It's what they need. It's all different.
That's a lot of it too.
Everybody's different. Everybody's Jeep is different. I mean, your Jeep's different than my Jeep. His Jeep's different than my Jeep. I mean, it's
the one thing I find myself saying a lot. I mean, there's no bonus for hitting a sales number or anything like that. That eliminates just a lot of that. So you can just really relate to it. But the one thing that I find myself saying more often to customers is that, look, I own one of these things too. Like I'm not, I know we got to do this in bite-sized chunks, So if it was mine, I would do this and then that, and then I'll see you in 6 months and we'll talk about fun stuff, So I think that has a lot to do with it too. You take your Jeep to a shop and that kid that you're talking to drove up in a Honda that day. Like he really doesn't, he doesn't know what it's like to have one,
right?
Or what.
A couple of our guys have Hondas. One's about to do the Gambler 500 in his Honda. But
Gambler.
anyway, that's a whole
It's
other.
a Gambler car.
Love the Gambler.
That's this weekend.
He's an XJ guy, so a Honda Civic is the same thing, right? I mean,
unibody.
Yeah, seriously.
No, but I think too, it's how we train our employees to know that And one of my big things, I do a lot of role playing in the beginning, and just to make sure that they're comfortable asking questions. Like it's okay to ask a question. Well, what are you going to do with it? And if you don't know, then you can always ask a question and ask if you don't know it.
Yeah, because it sounds a lot of times. I mean, people can come into the shop. I would think having an idea like this is what I want to do because they went through either a Facebook thread or a forum or read a magazine or like oh that's what I want. But when it really comes down to how are you going to use the Jeep? And that probably actually shapes the build a lot more.
Man.
And I say that all the time. I could do that. However, 6 months down the road, something's going to happen, and then you're going to look back at us.
Yeah.
And that's not right. So let's talk about why we wouldn't do that and what we would do instead. So it's really, it's just about communicating with the people that come in.
Over communicate.
I mean,
communicate. Yep.
It's huge. Asking questions. Even if you look stupid,
But it's not.
But that is the one spot where it does diverge, doesn't it? They come in and we're like, okay, what is the goal here? Because then we can start to tailor this thing. And I don't really hear that happening at many other places.
Yeah, it's not just flip through the catalogs that are on the desk and be like this, and this, and okay, we'll put it on.
That's what I got to say about that. Yeah.
Role playing, yes.
So to tangent off of role playing, a husband and wife dynamic in the workplace.
Nice segue there.
Yeah, good one. It's not been without its ups and downs. That's for sure. It took a while to establish a balance, or like this imaginary line in the sand that we really didn't cross anymore. And I think that the key thing that has made this work is we have complete opposite skill sets. I always joke that, like, you know, obviously Molly came from corporate America. I joke all the time that I saved her from a life of prosperity. You know, she was doing great. And then let's open up a Jeep shop and, you know, yeah. Anyway.
North Florida.
Yeah. But you know, when she came down here, you know, this is my third Jeep shop. The first one I opened with a guy that had the exact same set of skills that I did, which, you know, that's doomed to failure. Nobody really brings
Duplicity.
anything
Yeah,
out,
right
you know.
off the bat.
The second one, I tried to do it all by myself, and that just doesn't work. And at that point, you know, I meet Molly, and she comes down, and I'm 5 years behind in my taxes. And, I had no interest in paperwork. I just wanted to fix Jeeps.
I just want a wrench on Jeeps.
Fun, you know.
Complete disclosure here. Can you tell we're honest?
You know, I mean, so that
Caught up now.
that opposite skill sets really made it work, and it was definitely tough in the beginning because you want to, God, it's your baby, you know what I mean? So you're like, what's she doing over there? And then you're in the shop, what's he doing over here? And so there was quite a bit of that in the beginning. It was damn sure tough.
Yeah, but being opposite has helped, you know.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. I always say, like, play on your strengths and get help with your weaknesses. Of course, you need to work on them and things
Right.
like that. But if you want to double down on something, double down on what you're strong on.
Yeah.
And so
That's a good way.
with other husband and wives who may be entertaining the thought of going into business together, like what type of advice would you give them up front?
it's got to be trust. You got to trust them 100%. You cannot. Yeah.
Especially when, you know, they're doing something that you wouldn't have done it that way, you know, and it's something that you both could do well, you know, like you were saying, double down on your strengths, but yet you still have a different opinion of how it should be done.
Right.
At the end of the day, you need to trust that you both have the same thing, and that's the best interest of the company at heart, you know.
Yeah. And it's I mean, the thing that makes entrepreneurs or small business owners is they you want to do everything.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Right.
control freak may be a little bit of a strong word, but that's what we are. I mean, that's
are
what
one.
most small business people are. Yeah. So that's difficult when you get two of those together, you know.
Right.
But anybody who's entertaining any sort of business as a husband and wife, they got to find that balance. They got to find it quick.
Well, and you got to leave it at the office, even though that's tough.
Actually, yeah.
And sometimes we'll talk a little bit, but then once, you know, dinner's ready, it's you know, shop talk's done.
Yeah.
So we try to limit that as much as possible at home.
Kind of the old work-life balance.
Yeah.
That is very key, because you do want to keep going. I mean, you just want to, you know, I mean, you got everything always needs to be discussed or problem solved.
And we shut our we just shut mobile data off at a certain time. I mean, at like 8:00 every night, that goes off.
Cut off.
Yeah. Phones, you know, we have clearly you can get a text message and a phone call if there's an emergency, but any of the data, social media, all that stuff gets shut off at night.
I like it. No, that's there's information overload.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, people. I recently watched an interview and included Elon Musk, and he was talking about how, you know, people are like, oh, anti-AI, people becoming symbiotic with machines, and he's like, we already are.
Yeah.
He goes, there's many folks, and there's a psychological factor of you leave your phone at home and you go somewhere, and they liken that to the same thing as missing limb syndrome.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I can see that.
So like we
People are
become
so
so
used to-
attached to things, that it's
cyborgs.
yep.
Yeah.
Now, you also mentioned in the beginning you guys were kind of stepping on each other's toes a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
How important is it to kind of really outline, like, these are your responsibilities, these are your responsibilities. If we have questions, we'll entertain them within each other, but this is what we need to focus on.
Well, and then accountability.
Right.
So, and just, I think it's also getting together regularly, whether it be lunch or breakfast, something like that, to kind of just hash stuff out. And it's important, we found, to do it out of the office and out of the home. And so to do it, even at, just going for a walk or out in the parking lot, we go out in the parking lot a lot and talk at the shop.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of out of the office, just, to get out of the environment.
And
for
it was
a
not
minute.
like, I mean, we never whipped out a piece of paper and wrote these things down. This
Right.
balance
Just happened.
establishes itself.
Right.
And you really just start to, okay, I'm secure in the knowledge that financially Happy Trails, it's there.
taken care of.
Nobody's, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I can just focus on the shop and vice versa, it just kind of naturally established. It took a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, we were probably because we moved it twice. It started downtown.
Okay.
And then we moved it to Edgar Street
And but in Atlantic Beach.
in Atlantic Beach, which is, literally 3 blocks from where it is now. We actually wanted to move it into the building where it is now, but the woman who owned the building at that time apparently had slept through 2008 and realized that values had changed a little bit.
That was a different time.
So it took us a few years to get into that building, but we did finally do it. Yeah. And then really by that point, I think that building, honestly, that helped a lot because it kind of took a load off. We could kind of spread out a little bit. You had a proper office, where
That's why we were stepping on our toes. They were small.
Yeah, we were
the desk was in the bay.
Yeah. Really.
kind of thing. Yeah. But those were all growing pains, man. And I think in the end, kind of stronger for it.
Yeah.
It's not the end. Hopefully.
Having faith, just having faith in one another and that we're in it for a reason. Something gave us this vision and, just not giving up.
That's
Even
awesome.
after 08, we didn't give up. So. And we're way past 08. We're not going to say what the date is, but
No. I think many of us would like to forget this year.
yeah, it's been, so we'll have a lot of those. Made it through this, made it through that, but
So let's talk about, you guys have been on several off-roading trips of various types.
Yeah, a few here and there.
So what are some of your most recent that you've been on?
okay.
Oh, well,
The first one I was allowed to drive, the Jeep, was an official Jeep Jamboree, and that was a few years ago.
That's been a minute.
About 3 or 4 years ago, and that was in
honestly,
my JK.
well, recently, there really haven't been.
Well,
Since the new,
We do a shop trip every year. We shut down for a week in August.
Oh, cool.
And the boys kind of collectively will pick a spot to go wheeling, and we'll make it happen.
That's really cool.
And it's usually in the southeast, or we'll go through a couple of parks in Alabama, or just go to Windrock and get a cabin.
Something you can drive to.
Exactly.
And,
This past August, they chose Coppinger's Cove, which is outside of Chattanooga, and it's just
my favorite.
Beautiful. Oh yeah, it's a rocky watershed area. I mean, there's caves you can drive into. There's huge rocks you can crawl. The scenery is just incredible.
That's cool.
I mean, it's just a really, really cool part of the world. And I actually, to open this second location, we really kind of trimmed just about everything. I had to go borrow my son's Jeep to
that
go
trip.
do the shop trip in August. Because we had a few Jeeps, but none of them ran. That's the whole
in projects, but
the same, the plumber with the leaky
Yeah,
faucet,
plumber with the leaky pipes. Exactly.
But so that was really, there's been kind of a year kind of hiatus from wheeling.
But that August was awesome. So we rotate every other year. The families are welcome. So one year it's just the boys and the rigs, and then the other year the girls and the moms,
The whole
and the
crew.
wives and the children. It just depends on who's available to participate with our guys. And this year that he's talking about, it was all the families. So we had a ton of kids and little kids. One of our guys just had his fifth child, and she was like 2, and of course dogs, and so
that has a lot to do with
our
choosing
culture.
where to go.
Right.
Too is if all the kids and the families are along, you try to get somewhere where there's something other to do than just go
wheel.
bang around in the Jeep. What
Right.
I mean? it's not Nashville, Chattanooga. Chattanooga is a cool town for that with the aquarium and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff there.
Yep.
And then the area we are or were with swimming holes and stuff like that is just, there's something other to do than just bang around in the Jeeps.
But you were talking about recent. So actually we leave next week for it's called the Florida Adventure Rigs. It's kind of like the Ultimate Adventure, but on a smaller scale, where it's a private group and you don't really know where you're going. You have a GPS coordinate of the start. And then, so you just are prepared to wheel for an entire week, and you live out of your vehicle.
Oh, so
it's not all Jeep.
So overlanding.
Yeah. It's not all Jeep related, but so it's a little bit of everything. We've got a Bronco coming this year, you guys.
Jeeps and then a bunch of cars.
No, I mean, there's a full-size truck that's been on the UA twice.
Oh, yeah.
A couple, the one leading it this year was on the Ultimate Adventure.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are UA vets.
Yeah.
So it's really patterned after that. And a guy named Robert Keller, the way he explained it to me is it's more adventure wheeling than overlanding, right? I mean,
Gotcha.
it's kind of a combination. Yeah. The wheeling that this group does is definitely way more than your average overlander would do. I'm trying to think of trails that would mean something to
but definitely
people,
some more serious off-roading,
it's
not just rolling down a dirt trail
Correct.
in the Ocala National Forest.
And it's such a diverse group. I mean, there'll be, built Grand Cherokees. There'll be a
couple of Hummers.
There'll be like an H3 Alpha, which is the Rubicon of the Humvee
Right.
line, which is a super cool rig. Lockers V8. I mean, seriously,
Those are cool.
of course, a couple of Toyotas will be in there. So it's a pretty diverse group. I love watching other rigs other than Jeeps wheel.
Is this the first time you guys have done a trip like this?
No, this will be the fourth time you've been on the FAR and the third for me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an annual. They do it every year. We weren't able to do it last year just because of our expansion and stuff, but we're ready to go this year.
Do you know where the start is this year?
Somewhere in West Virginia.
Yeah.
So we're
Starts in West
super
Virginia.
excited. I haven't spent very much time in West Virginia. He has, but
Wild and wonderful.
yeah, I can't wait. So
I actually have a real quick West Virginia story.
Let's go. Let's do it.
So I spent a couple of years in DC and we would go out Skyline Drive and then just, you pick these forest roads that go up to like an antenna on top of some mountain or something and you just go, right? So I was going up one and it was a fairly maintained dirt road. And then, on the West Virginia side, it was just not maintained at all, which is exactly what we look for, ruts and drop offs and switchbacks. And we were having a great time. And we got to the West Virginia side and there was like, Teddy Roosevelt State Park and went in there and hung out and got some ice cream. And then it was kind of getting dark and we had to get back. And I'll stop right there. And about 10 years ago, there was a Jeep commercial that was filmed out west and the camera never moved and it showed a gas station and a guy pulls up in a Ford Explorer and leans out the window and asks the gas station attendant, what's the quickest way to Bakersfield? And the guy steps back and looks at the Ford Explorer and says, well, you got to go down Highway 20 for about 50 miles. And then you go down Highway 30 for about 60 miles. And then, gives all these complicated directions. Oops, sorry. Woman pulls up in a Jeep Grand Cherokee. What's the quickest way to Bakersfield? Guy steps back, looks at the Grand Cherokee, says, right over those mountains. That seriously happened to me in West Virginia. The guy stood back from the Jeep and was like, oh, well, you can make it over the mountain.
Just go over the mountain. That's awesome.
Like, wow, this is really cool. I remember this from a commercial. Anyway, that's a fond memory of West Virginia.
but anybody can follow the FAR group. It's been in JP Magazine and Four Wheeler and all that. So we're looking forward to it. It's after missing a year, you get pretty tight with the group. It's
Yeah.
That's the other thing about these groups, and I won't stay on this tangent too long. But you'll have a truck driver, and you'll have, I don't know, a software engineer, and you'll have, these people from just all these different walks of life.
Right.
Like they would never be in a room together if it weren't for the Jeep or for, in this case, off-roading in general.
Right, right.
Or adventure wheeling, overlanding. That's the thing that you leave that group in particular with, is that these people would never interact with one another if it wasn't for this.
something to bring us together.
That's kind of cool, I mean, it really is.
I see that a lot. Like we talk about events like Jeep Beach and things where there's so many thousands of people there, thousands of Jeeps there, and the sheer diversity of owners
It's insane.
is just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I call the Jeeps fingerprints. They're all every single one of them is unique.
Yeah.
Which is why we try to ask as many questions as possible. It's like, and you don't want them all to look the same.
Right. Right.
You know, if a wheel, and I say this to people, I'm like, man, that wheel's so played out. You want to try something else.
Definitely.
But,
So we've talked about trips you've done or about to do.
yeah.
Bucket list trips. What are a couple that like you're like, I want to check this off?
Maine and Canada, like Nova Scotia, that'll be in the fairly near future, within a couple of years.
Long-term bucket list is go through Costa Rica and
That's
my long
Central
term.
America
Go
trip.
down into Central America. I'd like to start by doing some Baja, which apparently is the safe way to get to Central America nowadays. You go down Baja and and then take the ferry over.
Take the ferry over.
1,000 miles into Mexico.
It's the long-term bucket list. So,
Yep.
But definitely, we did make one trip out west a couple of years ago and did a lot of wheeling in the Phoenix area and then up into Flagstaff.
Okay.
That was one of the far trips, and it was
And of course, that's just incredible out there. I mean, it's beyond beautiful. It's
Well, it's
I guess,
completely different scenery.
Yeah, being an East Coaster, you just blow the space, and then you just
We,
can't even, you know.
I love it. Like like my boss right now is actually on a 30-day trip.
Hello.
With his wife, 5 kids, and an RV.
Oh, all right.
nice.
And they currently just the other day went through Zion, and they did they did the Narrows and everything else, and really seeing that scenery, it's like it's completely alien to what we're used to.
Beautiful out there.
You do get back, and you're like, oh, wow, green. This is cool. You know.
Trees and grass.
But
But it was cool driving across country. That's definitely something.
Yeah. And then we told ourselves then that we would do these little like slices of the Southwest because you know the distances are just so huge that
Yeah. Can't try to cover
can't-
so much because you'll miss it.
Yeah, you
Right,
can't do
right.
Vegas to Phoenix. That you spend all your time on the road.
Yeah.
So the next trip that we probably make out there. Well, I'll back up a little bit again. I was going to drive my CJ to Easter Jeep Safari this year, and it was just going to be an old bald guy in his
And
old
it got
Jeep
canceled.
going to Easter Jeep Safari, and yeah, of course, you know it
R.I.P. Everything's being canceled.
I know, right?
yeah, global pandemic.
I would like to get back to a car event at some point in time.
Seriously,
Let's not dwell on that.
I did go to Frank X Adventure Vehicles and Coffee a couple of weeks ago, though. I don't know if you saw that.
No, yep, I saw
Spring
that.
Park Coffee in Green Cove Springs.
Yep.
So that he is going to do another one, so that ought to be fun.
Very
that
cool.
was a really diverse group of people, too.
Really?
You've got gambler guys pulling up in Subarus.
Yeah. Robert Keller came up.
Yeah,
from,
Robert Keller
from
came
DeLand.
up,
Yeah, in his UA truck.
That's cool.
Of course, Jeep people. There was a guy there in a four-wheel drive Astro van. I mean, like with a mural on the side. I mean, seriously, like you. Once again, how do these people even find each other? You know.
Funny tangent. Do you know, for whatever reason, 4-wheel drive Astro vans are a huge export into Canada?
Are they
Really?
really?
Yes.
Like it's just the snow and
Yeah, a lot of the vehicle importer exporters
Yeah.
are doing
Wow.
tons of Astro exports into Canada.
That's cool.
Very random.
all right.
That's fun.
Yeah, that's. I wouldn't.
I
Have
know that
thought-
was completely
yeah,
random.
Yeah, no.
That's really cool. I love it.
Well, but they just stand out too. I mean, you pull up to a parking lot in Green Cove Springs and you see a 4-wheel drive Astro van. You're like, that's just cool. I mean, there's nothing you can't say. Like, you know, it's,
Whoever is driving that has got to.
they got to have
Right.
a story, man.
Definitely.
But anyway, God, I don't know what got us on that. Sorry,
I have
it
no
was
idea.
A bit of a tangent.
Bucket list.
We were talking about
yeah.
events and bucket
Yeah.
list and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so Moab is high on the list, and really having done that, you know, south of Phoenix up to kind of Flagstaff, wheeling the next
Crown King.
step up is Moab. I mean,
Right.
you're getting into Utah at that point. So that I have never wheeled Moab, and I know it's, you know, Mecca
Yeah.
in our world.
Yeah, it's where you go.
So maybe next year.
Well, how about this for somebody who's new to Jeep and maybe, you know, just mildly modified, you know, small lift, 35-inch tires, no real crazy. what is something they should do, like Jeep event wise?
Okay.
And then where also should they consider going to wheel?
We're probably going to have the same answer because we tell customers this all the time, and it's Jeep Jamboree. It's not free. It's not over the top expensive, but it's very well organized. It's very well structured, and your trail guides are phenomenal. You're treated well. The food's great. And that's the first, off-road trip that I did where I was the driver, and I learned a lot. It was definitely worth it. And you kind of just join Jeep Jamboree, and wherever they are is kind of where you go, and they're always somewhere cool.
Yeah.
Whether it be Uwharrie in North Carolina, or Windrock in Tennessee, or the Rubicon Trail, or Moab.
Coleman, Alabama.
Yeah,
You can. I always recommend that, and I find myself saying things a lot like, somebody comes with a brand new Jeep from the dealership, and they immediately, if they've been online, they start talking about lockers and this and that. And I'm always the first one to kind of say, look, go on a Jamboree, go wheel this thing just like it is, and see if you even need this stuff. And I've got some stories to kind of back that up. Of people, spending a pile, building a fully built out rig, wheeling it once and coming home and trading it in on something,
because then drivability.
Wow, I really don't like that angle.
Right.
So,
and they're fully capable stock.
and really your skill set and the Jeep's capability kind of need to rise
evolve
together.
Yeah.
That is the one thing I have with a Rubicon is you can just go buy this thing.
Yeah.
And it wants to kill you. Like, your job with a Rubicon is to stop it, because it will just go until it turns over.
You have a Rubicon,
Yeah, it'll go.
Yeah.
awesome.
And so you really got to learn to control that.
Right.
And your skill set needs to kind of come up with it.
They're really good at educating you with the Jeep Jamboree.
And that's
they
the
do
thing with the
classes
Jamboree.
too.
It's not a bunch of beer swilling rednecks out there. They're good educators. They're going to teach you proper recovery techniques.
That's great. Yeah,
They're
nice.
very big with tread lightly, which
Tread lightly.
is what's going to keep our land and usable.
Right.
So,
And for those that may not know what Tread Lightly is, if you want to just do a quick on what it is.
So Tread Lightly is a nonprofit organization that really supports being able to have access to the public land. And we did a lot of that out in Arizona. We don't have as much of it here on the East Coast, but there is some. And it's the tread principles. And it's, pack out what you pack in, pack out more than, you packed in. If you see stuff, clean it up. And it's about leaving the least amount of footprint that you can.
Right.
So that we can keep these trails open.
and they really fight land closure issues for all of us, like for people on horseback, for motorcyclists, for ATVers, for Jeepers. They're really a kind of across the board. So, I mean, really, I guess what it boils down to is they're an organization that we can kind of kick up to that has the means to hire attorneys to fight.
Right.
When the government wants to do something because especially out west, the BLM is always saying, we're going to shut this area down because we can't afford to maintain it. And then the off-road community has to step in and go, well, we don't want you to maintain it.
Right.
Just leave it the way it is, so there's always this disconnect.
But they're real big on education. So if someone can't do a Jeep Jamboree and they want to keep it local, they can always go to the Tread Lightly group and find a local organization or a local club that partners with Tread Lightly, because there are a ton of Jeep clubs.
Yeah.
But that goes with, there's pluses and negatives with being, there being a ton of Jeep clubs. You want to make sure you get in with one that really actually cares about the community as a whole, off-roading and, keeping it clean.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we've talked a ton about off-roading, Jeeps. What do you guys do outside of Jeeps?
Well, right now we're getting more and more on the water. So we moved from the beach, and when I got here, he was a surfer, and now we're getting a little bit more back to his roots. And so we're on the river a little bit more. We're kayaking, and
Very cool.
Hopefully going to be in a sailboat before too long. A little day sailor.
Looking at a little day sailor, yeah. Because living out in Green Cove now, I mean, it's the other half of Florida out there. Like I lived at the beach all those years, and you just kind of put the blinders on, right? Oh, we don't cross the ditch. We don't. And I got to tell you, honestly, I'm regretting it a little bit, because I've literally missed out on the other half of Florida for the last quarter century. You know?
We're going to spend a lot of time in the springs and swim with some manatees and some mermaids, maybe in February.
I know a few.
Yeah.
I'm dying to get in.
Yeah, but living out, you got Gold Head State Park, you got all that Bayard conservation lands, the hiking and the springs, and the
tons of trails.
It's just, I feel like I missed out a little bit,
Yeah.
So we're really both enjoying
Catching up.
It's crazy how much more active we are out there than we ever were at the beach. At the beach, you might get on a beach cruiser and go to dinner or something like that, but you are in this kind of
You feel kind of laid back.
Well, we got comfort. We were there a while, but so it was time. So yeah.
It's been just a good shakeup all around.
But I think regardless, we're outdoor people. So whether it was outdoors at the beach in the Jeeps, now we're outdoors on the river kayaking and doing some day sailing, something fun. Yeah. And animals. I'm an animal freak too. So yeah.
Do we have a herd at home or?
We just have two right
Only
now,
two.
but there's a lot of there's been a lot of wildlife in our life too.
Molly's on the board of directors for the
Wildlife Rescue Coalition of Northeast Florida.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot to say.
That is a mouthful.
Yeah. So, and of course, their mission statement is, keeping wildlife, right?
Right.
Rehabilitate and release.
Rehabilitate and release. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So no domestic animals, So, anytime a storm goes through, there'll be squirrels, babies, and raccoons and stuff like that. Yeah, raccoons are actually pretty awesome. They have like opposable thumb and forefinger, and they're really cool.
Tell Chico to grab me a drink out of the fridge.
Yeah, they're pretty wild. They sound like almost like human beings when they cry too. It's pretty wild. Yeah. But anyway, so there's always usually some wildlife other than just the dogs in the house.
That sounds like fun.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Lots to do.
Yeah.
So looking forward with Happy Trails, I know that sounds like a typical resume question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Hopefully we'll be closer and closer to that associate owned. I mean, it's a little bit harder than I thought it would be to get there. Yeah. But with the ups and downs, the fact that we started in 2007, so but we've got the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think we got a game plan now. So in 5 years, that's hopefully where we'll be.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's funny how we've shrunk back here. Just 3 or 4 months ago, we're talking about 5 years, and it's right there. And then now everything has kind of shrunk back a little bit.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You're only talking about months, but it hasn't really changed that plan. She's right. I mean,
Well, you keep a North Star.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got that core group. They're raring to go. Yeah. The only thing, just a little more experience under their belts, and they've got it, man. I mean,
that's awesome.
Ryan is so raring to go over here in Atlantic Beach now. It's ridiculous. He's it's amazing that shop, I think, is set. And since I mentioned Ryan, I got to mention AJ and Casey and Danny too. So you guys are ready to go too.
Patrick and Chris. And
well,
Lindsay
that's Green
and
Cove.
Lisa.
That's the other one.
They're all
okay.
one.
Yeah, we'll get them all. Okay, there we go.
There's a lot. There's a lot of us.
Yeah. But sorry about that. But yeah, that in 5 years, it should well be on the path to us having, however it gets divvied up, giving away shares, chunks of ownership, at least seeding.
Right.
That's the goal that we kind of, or the conclusion we kind of came to with Happy Trails.
We want it to be there after we move on.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a shame. I mean, mom and pops.
Yeah.
You know what happens to mom and pops,
Yeah.
right? I mean, most of my equipment came from mom and pops.
Yeah.
And I bought it for scrap value or pennies,
pennies on the dollar.
And it is, you're virtually in tears. This business has been here for 40 years, and I'm over here buying your welder, because it's getting liquidated. I mean, that is a crying shame. You know, if that guy could have just imparted a little bit of that knowledge on his successor or his protege or apprentice or whatever you want to
it's
call it.
A lot of knowledge loss.
Yeah.
It could have kept going.
And our industry is a dying, I mean, we talked about this earlier. mechanics, and it's kind of a dying trade.
Skilled
it's very hard.
trades.
It's
The
skilled.
trades in general.
So
you hit it right there.
I
Right.
think, and it's so important for it to stay in the future and to keep our passion for keeping Jeep and the history alive is to pass it on. And so it's so important to pass it along.
Yeah.
Right?
necessarily agree with that the trades are dying. I think it's just so
Shrinking.
many fewer kids are going into the trades.
Yeah,
It's just not the same percentage
demand
that
for
it was.
trades is
It's
actually
going through the
going
roof.
through the
I
roof.
know,
It
right?
is. I
So
agree with you.
hopefully, more and more people will step up and want to do it,
Right.
and have that in them to be able to do it.
Right.
One of my customers actually put it to me best, and that was, we were talking about an old CJ2A, so a 1940s Jeep, and he said that these were built in a time when machine work was expensive and craftsmanship was cheap. And we live in the exact
Yeah, we
opposite
do.
world. I mean, you can go out on Amazon right now and buy a CNC machine that'll fit on that table right there.
Yeah.
CNC
And kick out quality
machine
work.
work is exceedingly cheap, but the craftsmanship, that's the part we have a problem with in today's world. It's
Right.
just not getting passed along.
Well,
like it
and
was.
we were talking about cars from the 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Oh, yeah,
And you're right. It's because they were built by craftsmen. They weren't just, a homogenization of a bunch of parts and everything else.
one-off machines.
Right. Like someone was shaping a fender,
Yep.
someone was, building suspension components by hand, things like that.
We see that when just trying to stop a simple oil leak, where seals and gaskets don't fit that. 'cause
Yeah.
it's a real machine.
Yeah. But I read an old tech manual for an old MG once that was exported to Australia, and in the manual were instructions on sand casting a new piston for the engine. Can you imagine that? Seriously?
Well, did you-
Hold on, I got to stop here.
Well, and up until recently, Ferrari sandcasted their engine blocks.
Oh, wow.
And and I believe even the heads.
That's pretty wild.
Nice.
That is pretty wild. But seeing that in a tech manual, kind of like an old, when you bought a CJ2A, the owner's manual that came with it had instructions in the back about how to plow a field. It was like it was the farm implement is what the Jeeps were.
Yeah, it was
were
a tool.
sold as,
Yeah, it was a tool.
Yeah, that Jeep that we were talking about that was in the family forever. It had a PTO on the back that ran the belt, that ran the sawmill to cut the wood.
Yep.
Up and made. So, Anyway.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see kind of a revitalization in regards to artisan craftsmanship.
Right.
And I think I just from going to random car shows and things like that, you're starting to see a lot more of unique, one-off, not necessarily part off the shelf type
Right.
thing. And its value now is finally, I think, in a spotlight to where people are really recognizing that, like in a skilled trade, is in a sense these days an artist. Like the way they have to go through and put things together and imagine it fitting together first.
And if you got a hand beat a fender, I mean that just
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
believe it
Or
ever
dealing
saw
with
that.
wiring harness. We say this a lot because people would want to interrupt him while he's filleting a wiring harness on a vintage Jeep, and he's like, "Would you do this to a brain surgeon in surgery?" Like, hold on,
Right.
And it's just such a different environment, and people just need to be enlightened sometimes. But
Right. And I think it kind of goes where people were so used to, like with a wiring harness, like maybe back in the day, like I'd go to Jeep and I'd just go buy the part, and now, if you want it done and looking a certain way or it done a certain way, like it has to be done by hand. And I think, like I said, some people are finally starting to realize the work that goes into something just like that.
And I think that's one of the pluses at where we are right now in the world is we're able to have that conversation with our customers about buying things that were made somewhere overseas that I won't mention, versus trying to keep it here. And I've recently been able to have that conversation, and it's double the price, but if you can't afford it now, then maybe let's wait a minute because we're never going to break that cycle if we don't break the cycle.
No. And again, and even having, like you said, custom pieces, like it may not even be like, oh, well, I want this bumper from this company and it may be made here, but then again, you may have a solution that you make in-house or, you take to a machine shop or, metalwork and say, this is what we really need. Let's put this together.
We've done that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that very recently actually that Jeepster. Because we have a plasma cutter at the Atlantic Beach shop.
Oh,
so
awesome.
if you can think it'll cut
Yes.
it. That is a nifty toy. It's the ultimate fire wrench, man.
Yes.
That thing is cool. So you can just about do anything, but that's the thing. The time is you can never compete with that mass market stuff.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
And there's a place for it.
Yes.
I mean, there definitely is. There's a place for it. But if you're serious about building something and you want a certain level of quality or form, fit, and function,
I think you're right. I think there is that growing realization, and there are enough people out there now that they want something truly unique.
yeah.
Especially in our industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, when you talk about either a big Jeep show or something else, and you can have a lot of Jeeps in a field, and you can point out, like, well, those 100 over there all have the same front bumper,
Right.
That type of thing. So, what do you guys, kind of speaking of future of Happy Trails, what do you think? How's the future of Jeep looking? What's the pulse on the Jeep community?
Man, it just keeps going up and up and up. Like I thought, what was that last year? 440,000 JKs built that last year.
It was ridiculous.
I mean, I think JL is eclipsing that, and now with JT paired in there, man, I don't.
And now the overlanding, because of the JT, is exploding too a little bit more. Yeah. It's growing. We're going to get some competition though soon, so we'll see. Competition is good for business.
Oh yeah, the Bronco,
the new Ford Bronco.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That competition is good for business.
Will we see a Bronco at Happy Trails?
I don't know. I always probably not. Right? I mean,
maybe once we're gone, somebody else may make a different decision. But
it's funny. We get people that pull up all the time, and they get their GM or their whatever, and I tell them honestly, I'm like, you're almost doing yourself a disservice by bringing this here, because I don't know anything about independent front suspension.
I could do the work, but I would be I'm not.
Yeah. It's
I don't know,
not.
backspacing, fender clearance, like we don't speak. We speak Jeep.
Yeah.
It's we could learn it, but a Jeep just is so busy.
Well, you got to specialize. I mean, every other industry is doing it. I mean, somebody said the other day, you're going to have a doctor for every toe or a lawyer for every, it's every industry. There's just so many of everything now that you have to start to specialize in order to become good at it.
It's hard to, and I think with modern vehicles, like if you go back to the carbureted era, like for the most part, every motor functioned the same way. They all had a very similar suspension setup. But now, like, there's no way you could be a high level tech and work on 6 different brands.
I don't know anything about a North Star engine, I don't know
Even with Jeep though now, I mean, we've got the turbo coming and the
it's true.
diesel. So it's evolving in our world too.
Right.
I mean, we're having to bring on different style mechanics that actually can have more experience on that side of things. And so we've been lucky to acquire.
Actually, we really have been fortunate in that respect. Yeah.
It is different. Like you said, it is growing.
So what do you guys, what's kind of like some initial thoughts and feelings about the Hurricane motor?
Oh, the 4-cylinder?
Yeah.
Is that what they're called?
I think that's what it's called.
Know. Yeah.
Is it?
I don't
know.
I'm sure I'll be corrected if it's not.
No. Yeah.
I say all the time I'm on Team Turbo. So now that we've built, but the guys in the shop, I don't know.
I don't know. I think
we've lifted and put some 40s on some turbos, and I'll drive them around to deliver them, because we deliver all, within like a 100-mile radius and not even re-gear. I mean,
it goes.
Yeah, it's super fun.
All right.
Trailer brake controller in a 2-liter 4-door JL about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And in order to kind of tune this thing out, the guy brought his trailer up to the shop, and it was this huge camper behind this thing. And I'm looking at it, and I actually drove it on the road, and I was amazed.
Yeah.
I was blown away. A 2-liter. It's that starter alternator generator
it's
that
got
takes up for the turbo.
It
lag,
has to, because
it's incredible.
We have a small 19-foot camp, 19?
Yeah.
20-foot camper.
Yeah.
And loaded, it's just under 3,500 pounds.
So it's right there.
That's light.
It's not.
Really
it's
light.
not big.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But in towing in Florida, I towed with my Jeep for about a year.
Yeah.
It was okay. Now, mind you, mine's a 17, so it's got the 3.6. But still, I mean, 35s, factory 373 gears. I did have a trailer brake installed.
Right.
Yep.
Flatland, it was fine. I could get to 65 and cruise, and and I would manual shift the automatic and keep it
in fourth.
Yeah, keep it in fourth.
Yep.
Yeah.
But man, any type of incline,
and it
Like,
wants to be in second, like right now.
It wants to be
Yeah,
in second.
yeah.
Now, like I thought a couple times I was going to have to Fred Flintstone up a hill. I was like, come on, we've got to do this.
Yeah. And that's rated to tow that.
Yeah,
You know,
and it's rated to tow that. And that's why I'm surprised. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, man, they must,
Yeah.
like I said, there's got to be some torque magic in that.
Yeah, that 2-liter. I mean, I'm a big fan of technology. I'm not one of these guys that thinks carburetors were better because they just weren't. I mean,
I've seen plenty of carbureted Jeeps stall on a hill coming up.
Weren't better. Technology makes almost everything we touch better, including engines and their longevity and their power
Right.
output.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
everything about it. So I'm big on doing fuel injection versions on a lot of the old CJs, particularly the 4.2s, the inline 6s, back from the 1980s, the emissions days were
Right.
just horrible. Oh God, and so there's there's just about nothing that technology can't help with on an 80s CJ.
Yeah, no, it doesn't take much to improve.
So I'm always going to kind of err on that. Oh, and I do have another one. I follow Nina Barlow pretty religiously. She has a company that rents Jeeps in Sedona, Arizona, and she does a lot in Moab, and she does a lot with Falcon Tires. Like
Okay.
for the drive and learns, she'll provide the Jeeps. She always gets the Jeeps very early. Like she rotates her rental fleet out really, and she actually wrote an article in the last year or so of JP. Nina Knows Jeeps. She had a column in there. And then now we don't have Jeep
JP,
anymore. It's very sad. We still have Peterson.
Cue the trumpets.
So, yeah, I know. But anyway, at one point she had taken a V6 JL, the 3.6, and a 2-liter JL, both 4 doors, to Sand Hollow, which is kind of, a lot of people call it the new Moab.
Okay.
And she said that the 2-liter ran circles around the 3.6 all day long, never got hot, never got, it just never had problems. So, I mean, this is a person that
Well, the 3.6 had been around for a while.
Yeah.
It's not a new motor.
Right.
And even they said they did some updates to it for the JL.
it does make a bit more power in
Right.
JL.
I can tell a difference in jail.
Yeah, you can tell. It's kind of hard to tell if it's the engine or if it's that 8-speed. That 8-speed is really good about keeping it in its
Is
power
it?
band. If you put a 3.6 JL next to a 3.6 JK, the JL is going to blow its doors off.
Yeah.
It's a combination of both, for sure.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that JK lasted as long as it did with the 5-speed. Like I know like they were selling enough of them, so there was no reason for them
Right.
to have to go through
The
and add
Wrangler
anything.
gets everything last. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
literally, they know people are going to buy it anyway.
Right.
So it gets everything.
Exactly.
And that's not a new thing.
No.
Right? I mean, Cherokee got the 4-liter injected way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Somebody will probably correct me on this, maybe 5 years before it went into Wrangler. They were still running carbureted Wranglers in 1991.
And people were still buying them.
People were still buying them, So it's funny now. You look at the Grand Cherokee if you want to see that's the flagship. That's
Like,
the one that's
what's
all
up
first.
Yeah.
It gets an 8-speed, and it's coming in Wrangler.
I was hoping there was going to be an SRT Wrangler.
Yeah. I was hoping with the Gladiator that maybe they would do something.
It would be so easy to do something with that to compete with
Maybe it's coming.
Raptor.
Well, I'm curious to see now. So we mentioned the new Bronco.
Yeah.
And I think Jeep has been lazy in regards to advancing the Wrangler simply because they had no competition.
Correct. Yeah.
Now that there is, and I know there's already plans from Ford for the Raptor Bronco.
Oh wow.
Maybe.
So I'm wondering. I mean, we're not going to get. I don't think we're not going to get like a 392 or anything. But
what's the Moab one, or what's the edition that?
Oh, well, they have the desert rated
out.
Gladiator,
Yeah.
the Mojave.
Mojave, that's it.
Yeah.
But we haven't
So-
seen one in person yet, right?
Not yet. Well,
It
they're
got
there,
delayed
but
or something.
they got delayed
Right,
due to everything that's going on. But the Mojave's cool, but it's not. It's not like the engine is still the same.
And the JT,
right.
and the JT does allow you to do donuts and stuff. You can dumb the traction control down in
Enough
two-wheel drive
to break loose.
which you can't do that in JK. I mean, it won't. The rollover mitigate it won't let you have fun.
But that's what the Mojave is.
Yeah,
it's
it-
the desert.
it-
It's the desert edition,
like-
out. Yeah.
So is it
really
like a
cool.
runner, like a desert runner?
Yes.
Yep. So a lot of wheel travel.
Yep.
I don't know. We haven't seen one yet. It's
I mean, they've been in all the magazines. They're there. They're built. They're just kind of in transition right now.
Not one in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
There was one at the Jacksonville Car Show. So yeah,
was
that was just here before the shutdown. So.
Oh, yes.
There
so
was a
we missed that
Mojave,
one.
and
We missed this
I
one.
didn't know there was going to be one there. I probably would have gone. So, but yeah. I think you're right. I mean, they would be stupid not to try to do something, especially with the Bronco and the Ford. I mean, because they're taking some market share for sure.
I don't know.
And they're going to take more. I mean,
I think they're going to build each other up.
well, like I said
that's
earlier,
what- this
competition's
is-
good.
Yeah.
but
these-
still,
This building up of to the release of something, that harkens
Right.
back to like these days, right?
yeah, but there's such a
When you
demand for it. There's a reason we've been putting Hemis and LSs in Wranglers for as long as we. I mean, granted, I like to be able to do that. So once they offer it from the factory,
Right.
aftermarket could suffer a little bit, or it'll increase that too. So I think
I've heard from Jeep that they're not going to do it. They're not going to put a V8
Right.
or a JT, and I think, automotive design is dictated by safety and emissions. Like,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's government standards as far as where you have to be an
everything.
EPA. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
why the Mopar lift says 2 inches, and it is not.
Like 4.5. Yeah. I mean, they're not the only ones.
Really?
I think a lot of lift kit manufacturers, like, they got to pay liability insurance,
Yeah,
and they just say, "Oh yeah, it's a 2-inch lift."
Yeah, I think I've noticed that. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I think
tall.
I only bought a 2.5, and I think I netted 3.5.
Yeah.
Which is,
The-
I mean, that's kind of cool, but on one hand, it sucks if you say, okay, well, I'm just going to do 2 inches and a 33, and then you put the lift on, and it's like, wow, I could have put a 37 on that.
Well,
the
and
scaling is all
right, and you
Well,
or-
and for us from a retail side saying, well, I know, it says 3.5, but, the Jeep one's
Right.
only 2. So this is a lot of lift. So anyway, it's kind of helped us scale it down a little, I think, but.
well, that helps if you guys have the experience and,
Yeah.
and the know-how of, like, we know this is the way it works.
Yeah.
we've made the mistakes.
Well, I tell people, our learning curve is small. We only work on one line of vehicle. So we you learn a lot about a product upon installation, quality, whether it's, functional or not. So he said, by mistake, but, you learn upon installation and just fixing things that don't work out right.
If we got to break out a torch to put your bumper on, there's
There's a problem.
strong probability we won't be recommending that product. Yeah.
So towards the end of every episode,
Yeah.
typically it's always like when I say car, I'm like actual car, not Jeep related.
Yeah.
So I have a little segment I used to call Daily Race or Crush.
Okay.
But obviously we're not racing a Jeep.
But we can crush things.
So we're going to call it Daily Wheel in Jeep.
Okay.
Oh,
All
okay.
right.
And so I'll give you 3 Jeeps.
Okay.
And you're going to have to tell me, both of you have to tell me which one you daily, which one you would wheel, and which one you would crush.
Okay.
Wow. Oof. Crush. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't give you a heads up on that one because I like that one to be a little
Nice.
more off
I love
the
it.
cuff.
That's fun.
All right. Cool.
So these are all in completely stock configurations.
Stock,
No
okay.
mods.
Okay.
No mods. So I have an 06 LJ Rubicon. I have a 2020 Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon and a 45 Willys CJ 2A.
You have to choose to crush one?
Yes. You get the daily one, wheel one, and crush one.
Oh.
Ladies first.
I mean, I would crush the new one because they're a dime a dozen.
All right.
I would.
So we're crushing the
daily-
2020.
I would daily the TJ Unlimited, and I would wheel the vintage.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I would do. This is why I don't let you look at, like, we go out to dinner and she's like, what are you having? I'm like, I'm not telling you.
Figure it out on your own.
Well, if you've ever wheeled one of the 1940s, I mean,
yeah. I mean, absolutely.
I mean,
you wheel the 2A. Yeah.
we've got a
It'll
picture
go
of us
anywhere.
at Jeep Beach with the Genrite Jeep behind us, and we're just going over everything, and he's
Tony was so holding back. He had a
Tony
Terremoto
Pellegrino.
behind us. And we're in a 2A. So we're just, putzing along the obstacle course, and you would just hit this rah behind us, and he would just be like 100 yards back, and and then he'd wait for us to
wait
go
for you to
over
bounce
there.
around.
And he'd
But
come
we
back
did
up.
everything that any
It
of the
was
other
so-
Jeeps
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I mean, just slower, but
That's the thing. It is.
I mean, you're not going to daily a 40 Jeep.
No. but
You
daily
want to
the
drive
06.
it, but you're not going to daily it. So.
And honestly, I got to say, you daily the 06 because it is just a bit cooler than the 2020. right. I don't want to take anything away from the 2020, but the 06, it says more than I can make a payment. Right. You know, it kind of says I'm more of an enthusiast, you know, and that's important in the car world.
It was a special model that kind of sits.
It was the last of the TJs.
Right.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong. I love the 2020s. I'm dreaming about a Gladiator build.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the Mojaves in person because I'm like, you know, he was the Jeep freak. I just kind of evolved into it. So I like speed and reading all the little, you know, things the Mojave can do, you know, in higher speeds that, you know.
Yeah, it would be fun.
The normal Rubicon can't do. It's like.
Do a little hooning in a Jeep, you know, that'd be kind of fun.
I'll go out west in my Mojave. Come on, let's do it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Well, wow, I can't believe that came. Yeah, that's
that was a good question.
Just the minute he said them, I was like, that's exactly what I would do.
I mean, yeah.
That's wild.
That's good. Great minds.
Yeah. But I bet there's not a lot of people that would crush. What's that JL Ruby? What, $65,000?
They're beautiful though. I mean, they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
They're beautiful, and I love them. But they're still being made.
Well, it's kind of like when
the other ones aren't.
They're super current.
It's Chris in Green Cove was talking about his family. This is the one that's got
5 children.
Kids.
Yep.
And they were watching that movie, the Twister.
Oh,
where they wrecked the J10 and all of his kids were like, no, why would they do that? You know, but that's the same thing is you don't crush something that's not being built currently.
Right.
You can't just go get another one, you know? So that's, I guess that same logic kind of.
You would have thrown me for a loop if you put Gladiator in that list. So.
Yeah.
So I should have said 2020 Wrangler Gladiator or Gladiator Rubicon.
That was fun. That was really fun. That was a great question.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys for, again, taking some time out of your day, coming out, being on the show. We'll make sure we put all of Happy Trails contact information, social media information. We'll put that in the description for everybody. And then again, like I said, anybody that's out there, whether you're watching, listening, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see you guys again on next time.
Thanks.
Awesome.
This was a blast.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you ready to see somebody's need for speed?